Lately, I've started avoiding driving at night as much as possible, especially when towing the RV. But with the Wolfbox G900 Pro camera system, the night vision is spectacular. I mean, you feel so much more like you can see what's going on around the vehicle, so you don't feel as worried about driving at night and not being able to see what's going on. Look at this massive 12-inch screen right here, basically the same shape as your rear view mirror. And you can easily go from the front view like this to a split view. We've got the reverse camera here and your front camera right here. You can also do one more and have reverse only, so whatever version you want. Oh, there's all the mud from all that off-roading. I'm Tom.
And I'm Cherie.
And we're EnjoyTheJourney.Life. I'm at RC Auto Glass in Cottonwood, Arizona today to get this install that I've wanted for years. This is like the perfect Christmas gift for a vehicle owner. You're gonna love this camera setup once we get it put on the F450, but it'll go on any vehicle. Let's go check it out. Look at that image quality. It's the world's highest resolution of any smart dash cam camera system. And as a 4K front-facing camera and a 2.5K rear-facing camera right there. And the G sensor locks in critical footage if, for example, there was an accident while you were driving, or if the vehicle was parked and you have the parking monitor turned on, it will record that accident even if you're not in the vehicle, so you've got that footage just in case. That's really cool. And it has convenient voice control features, so you don't have to try to use your hand to control anything while you're driving. If, for example, you see an erratic driver and you want to take a picture to get their license plate, you can just say, take a picture, and the Wolfbox will take that picture, and it's such high quality you can zoom in and get the license plate number. Another cool feature is the reverse assist. Even though I have a backup camera on the Ford F450, it's all cloudy. You can see how cloudy it is right here. It's not really clear what you see, but when you look at the Wolfbox camera, you've got that reverse assist, and it's so nice to be able to see clearly where you are backing up. And the Wolfbox G900 Pro comes with an app, so you can connect your smartphone up easily to your dash cam. It will actually use the voice controls to turn on the Wi-Fi. There it goes. It picked it up and turned on the Wi-Fi. Gives us the password information. Don't look at that. And what we'll do is we'll come over here to the phone, connect device, and now we're connected. And so a lot of functionality with this. We can look at all the files it's recorded right here. Look at all of that. Pretty cool. And it also tracks your GPS location, and the Wi-Fi transmission speed is 4 times that of the previous version. And if you want to just order one right now before you finish the video, you can go right to the pinned comments and the description for a link with the best price, inclusive of all available discounts. And we really appreciate it when you use our links. This is like my favorite new truck upgrade right now. This thing is awesome. And stick around till the end of the video because we will have a full install on my Ford F450 truck, but it's also can be installed on any other vehicle. I am in Cottonwood with Matt at RC Auto Glass. Great to be here. The day is finally here.
It is, it is.
I have wanted one of these camera systems for years. And finally, Wolfbox came through with us with the G900 Pro, which you're saying is kind of a newer unit,
the
right?
Pro is a newer unit. They've had the G900s, but I've just noticed that they've got the Pro line, so that's pretty exciting to see all the features that they've got. I've also noticed that they have other things that they sent with it, the hardwire option, which is pretty nice to have as well, being that you'll have your accessory kick off and everything.
So, I mean, we're going to get into the list of things this can do, but it can do a lot.
Yes.
I mean, like it will kind of keep monitoring the truck if somebody backs into it. Or...
Say your vehicle's parked at a parking lot and you've got someone bumps into your car, it'll be monitoring the recording constantly, but it'll also save that jar and hard record so it can't be deleted or re-recorded over, so if you need it for future reference. It's also great for when you're having on-road experiences and you were to get hit and you want that recording. Well, now you can pull it off of your unit and show it to whoever you need to.
You know, I think that's a big concern for a lot of drivers out there these days. You got a nice truck, a nice car, you take care of it, you put a lot of money into it.
Absolutely.
And then somebody with no insurance or whatever backs into it, then disappears, you know.
Yes.
That kind of evidence will help you to maybe settle your claim or...
Definitely. The world we live in, it's hard to get that honesty out of some people, and when you have it on recording, now you can at least prove your innocence, which is great. And when it comes to insurance, you want to be able to show that, you know, whatever the case may be, even if it was, say, somebody that was driving in front of you and they collided with somebody else, you're capturing that and you can help give that information to that person or the police to help them with their insurance.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of perks to that, as well as you know, you can watch both displays if you need to while you're trailering. You can have it showing behind you as well as in front of you. You can have it dedicated just behind you, just in front of you. It's got your GPS track to help with your coordinates and all that, and it's touchscreen, which is really nice. Big monitor, very convenient to see, and all the touch panels are nice and easy to get to as well. So the unboxing. Nice little protection foam right there. So we've got the main unit. You have your top ports, video, your memory card, your GPS input, and then you'll have your microphones and your main power button, and of course your front camera. These are your strap posts, so they give you a few options on how you can mount these things to your mirror. And inside we've got a GPS antenna, and it does have a direction. You'll want that up. It has the self-adhesive on the back. You have your cigarette lighter option with the added USB, so you can keep charging something else, and it is USB-C. Give you enough cord there to go pretty far up. You're going to have your rear camera and your connection for the monitor, and then you've got a few different size straps here. You have a larger and a smaller depending on how big or small your factory mirror may be, so you'll get one for each, or two for each sizes, because you'll have your left and your right.
Oh, and they just kind of stretch to create like a rubber band.
Yeah, so it kind of hooks right here on both sides, and then you've got multiple different points to hook to. You would just find it, the one that fits best, pull, and then it sets in there, and you'll stretch it around the mirror and pull onto that side.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, gives it a nice little option depending on how your mirror is and what setup you've got. And then these are just nice universal camera mounts if it doesn't work to use the existing mount that they've got. So a couple options right there. Of course, a nice little cloth to clean your lenses and your actual monitor, and just some wire ties for holding the cables tight as you go up to your mirror itself. Nice little panel tool, help pop off any panel clips that you might need, and some good decals. Gotta love your decals. And of course, your user manual and your quick guide. Hardware kit, extension. You have your USB. This is a hardwire option, which is great. You get your ground, your constant, and then your accessory. The other options would be more like a battery, a cigarette lighter style. And then these are all inline fuse adapters, which are really convenient for this. So they give you the different style adapters depending on what style fuse you have. You can see there's multiple different styles nowadays.
So lots of options depending on how you want to wire it then.
Yes, yeah. So,
okay.
And of course, what vehicle you have might take this style connector instead of this style connector. So these are an inline fuse adapter. You can probably even use one for supplying power and one for supplying accessory. Ground is ground, so we'll just find a good chassis ground and use that. And this guy looks like our video extension lead. So this will basically take your monitor and go all the way to your camera, and it will have a reverse kick wire, which will probably tie off on your reverse light. All in all, pretty straightforward, nice, easy kit. They are universal, so it'll be something that's very easy to get going from start to finish if you just follow the basic instructions, get a nice lead from the back all the way to the front, and then just your connection for your power, and whether you use the cigarette lighter option or the hardwire option, which I believe we're going to do the hardwire option on this, so you won't see wires at all. But other than that, pretty straightforward.
Awesome. What kind of job is it to install something like this?
So these ones aren't too bad. It's definitely geared around a DIY option. So the biggest challenge is finding the location of where you want your camera, where you're going to run that wire up to the front. And then with this setup, you've got two choices. We can hard wire it, or you can cigarette lighter power the unit, which is very user friendly. You do have that cord that would have to be, you know, ran up, and you can tuck that behind your panels. Just totally up to you. They do give you these mount clips that are very convenient. They just double side stick to your dash or your pillar going up, to try to minimize those wires from being in your way while you drive. The other nice thing is we're going to be using, being that the vehicle we're doing it on is a very long truck, they gave us the extension, which is going to help a lot, seeing that we've got a crew cab long bed dually Ford F450. So it'll be interesting to see how much of this cable is left when we get to the very front, but I know that we've got enough here to work with, so that's going to be great.
Thanks so much for subscribing. We have lots of how-to videos, installs, and travel videos on our channel. We appreciate it.
We're going to pull this floor up and the kick plate so I can show you what we look for when it comes to the grommets to go through. So normally you'll have your floor mat, and then you'll have these kick plates right here. There's going to be different sections. Like this has, you can see the defined line. This will be the front kick, and then you'll have the pillar for the rear. We don't need to mess with that. We will see if we can get through the wire through here, because there is an access panel that looks like this for your fuses, which is going to be great on this vehicle to pull power and accessory. We might even find a good ground location in there because it is a fuse location. But we'll pull this up, and we'll be able to basically lift this carpet material up to look for that plug that we're going for. So a lot of times I'll just get this started, and they're just plastic clips that hold these down. You just pry a little bit at a time, work your way back, and you'll have that, just these clips.
Wow, just a little bit of cabling in there, huh?
Yeah, this is sending all the information from the front back, whether it's your taillights, your cameras, your seats. It just depends on what features your vehicle has. And then from here, we'll be able to loosen this up. We can take this off, but I'm not sure we'll need to right at the moment. We're just gonna try to find that plug. So we'll pull this carpet back a little bit. And right here, you can see this rubber grommet. So that's what we're going for. What I'll do is lift that up. And now we're looking at the floor of the vehicle. So that goes all the way down to the bottom of the truck. And we're gonna use this grommet right here. We'll cut a little hole in there. You could drill it, but it's kind of hard to drill rubber. We'll just cut a little hole to push the wires through, and we'll come from the back forward and zip tie as we go, come through here, and then we'll reset this nice and tight in that hole. And being that it's in the center, there's no way it's gonna rub up against the edge of that metal. And now we've got the wires inside the vehicle, which is exactly what we're going for, so we can make it all the way up the rest of it.
And that makes it a lot cleaner to get it on the outside of the vehicle, right?
Yeah, so the goal is to get that wire is hidden and cleanly outside from the in to your location. So doing it this way, a lot of the pros look for this almost every single time. If they can't, they will drill and put grommets of their own. Obviously they don't need that big of a hole, but they try not to, just because of the fact that it's not needed. Most vehicles have this already. If you're dealing with a car or an SUV, chances are you're not going to go to the bottom of the vehicle. You're going to stay within it because it's all one cavity. But a truck has a cab and a bed, so we have to get it down and out as quick as possible. So we're only running one way from one point. So you wanted to mount your camera flat to something like that. You could use a self-adhesive material, tape to basically stick it. But if it's something that's like in this area, a step, you might kick that and knock that off. So you don't want to do that. They also have this bracket that's attached to it that you can also, let's say, mount in this area behind your plate with some screws that they provide, and have it to where it'll clear your tailgate, but also give you a good view to clear past all of this. You can help see your receiver hitch and everything like that, as well as your trailer and anything behind you. You get too low and then you start having issues with seeing, everything gets really close and you don't see the area downward that you'd like. So having it up a little bit higher is kind of a good option. And they do offer the adhesive, the double-side adhesive for this plate as well, which we'll do that as well because we like to have extra bits of security for mounting. So if the screws rattled loose or came out, this will help hold it as a fail-safe. So,
and we drive on a lot of dirt roads, it shakes everything loose.
Yes. And then it does have these screws right here. Once you get it into position, you will want to snug those up so it holds it in that position as best as possible. But if you were to bump it really hard, you won't break anything off. It'll just let it turn down or up.
Okay.
So that's really nice as well. What we're going to do is we're going to pull this wire with the camera end connection up through here first, so that way we can basically make the connection. There is a little V-notch with arrows that point in the right direction. If you have them off, first off, that won't go in there. If you try to force it, it's going to end up messing something up, or the pins. So just make sure you feel that actually click into place, and then it'll snap once it's in the right groove. You could tape that for an extra added security for moisture and all that, but it does have a pretty good seal once it's clicked in. And then from there, we'll be able to get our mount location, being that this wire is back here now, to mount our camera and finish running our wire. You could drill a hole in the plastic if you want, but you want to make sure the backside doesn't have any steel that's going to make it really hard to drill through or interfere with maybe sensors or other wires that you don't want to hit. Being that it's such a small wire, it can easily loop over and it won't disturb anything. Now there is a red wire attached to this one, and that wire is going to need to be connected to a reverse light. You can get that from, it basically detects when you're in reverse gear to activate the rear view camera. You can get that from your trailer plug or your tail light on your vehicle, either side. You'll want to look for the reverse light, and you will need to multimeter or at least have a test light that will You can ground and then probe. You'll want to see which wire is active when you put it in reverse and it powers up the light. So
okay.
that's one of the only real hardwiring options you'll need to do with this. If you don't want the reverse camera to activate, then you wouldn't hook that up. Maybe tape it off or cap it so it's not live as a backfeed safety. But in this application, we are going to be pulling one of the lights out. I'll show you how we test that. We will use a multimeter instead of a test light, but we're just looking for a 12-volt signal once it's in reverse. As I said before, I am going to be putting this double-sided adhesive tape on this unit, so that way it adds that extra security in case if the screws do come out. Get that pressed on real nice. And then it's really good to use like a good cleaning solution. We're going to use an isopropyl alcohol and just wipe that area down. We'll stick it, and then it'll be nice because it'll hold that in location where we like it while we set our screws in there. So you just want to get any debris and oils off of that plastic. Let it dry, and then we'll go ahead and stick that on there. So what you'll want is actually to hold your plate with you when you're getting ready to set this. Being that, again, you've got your double-sided tape, it's going to help hold that into place until you can press it fully, but it'll also help you align to get the best position for when you're putting it in. You're not too high up and you're not too far down for when you do put your plate in there. So what we'll do is we'll get our wire kind of out of the way, put this over here, and then we're going to look for our screw holes like so, and then we're going to put that bracket as close to that as possible. Give it a little press, and then we'll pull that off. And now we've got our location. Press that on a little bit more, and then you're going to have these two little black Phillips screws, and that's where you'll want to screw that bracket in.
And it's nice, it's black, it just blends right in, you don't hardly even see it.
It blends really well. Once the cable is pulled down and zip tied, it's going to be even harder to see that as well. So again, it's a DIY option that I think anybody can really do if they just take their time and follow the instructions, keep wires tight and zip tied. I mean, they're going to be your best friend because that's going to keep things from getting caught on exhaust pipes, drive shafts, anything that you don't want it to catch and damage the wire. It is feeding video signal all the way up, so video is very sensitive, and you know, you don't want anything hot or anything like that that can damage that cable and disrupt your camera signal going forward.
Right, keep it away from the exhaust pipe, right?
Absolutely. Being that we're going into plastic, I'll be able to just use a regular Phillips screwdriver and slowly press until we get it to grab, and then it'll just snug up real nice and tight. You're gonna have more control on these tiny screws with a hand screwdriver than you will with a drill. There's not a rush. You saw how fast that was just using a hand screwdriver. And then we'll go ahead and put our license plate back on, just like that. Now there is a protective lens cover on this right now. We can take that off right now, or we can wait till we get everything settled up front and we're happy with the way everything looks. If for some reason we need to move it, you know, you're not accidentally scratching it while you're moving it. With zip ties, we like to use these flush cutters. They help for when you're doing zip ties. What it'll do is, a lot of times people will just cut something raw. It's easy to use like a scissor and cut, but you can't get a good tight cut, so you'll cut something like that. Now that thing is sharp and it can really do some damage. With these, you can pretty much go straight up to it, cut it flush, and it's not going to hurt nothing. Even if other wires are rubbing against it, it's not going to damage those wires.
Oh, there's all the mud from all that off-roading.
Yes. Got to store somewhere. The branches, of course, right?
Right.
Tumbleweeds stand no chance.
Yeah.
So he's going to be basically looking for a good solid run to get this wire forward. And a lot of times you're going to find a factory wiring harness that you can zip tie right with. And that's a good option because what you're doing is you're taking what the factory found is the least intrusive location for your drive lines, suspension components, your exhaust, anything that's dangerous for wires to be in. They find the best location, so why not use that to route your wire with? Zip tying it to it is perfectly fine. A lot of times that's what holds their equipment on wiring down, is zip ties with clamps. We're just going to follow that trail forward and get it to a part where we can push it into the cab.
And avoid the drivetrain.
Also cab mounts, anything that moves or gets hot.
Basically be pulling that floor boot out, and that should get us access to underneath the truck, as you can see here. And now we've got access from the top down. We'll use that same rubber grommet to make the hole for the wire in the center of it. We'll push the wire through this and that hole, and then we'll be able to use that to protect the wire going into the cab.
Are most vehicles going to have that same kind of a
For the
plug?
most part, you're going to have your trucks, most vehicles will have it. If it's a SUV or a car, anything that's a unibody type of option, you're not going to need to go outside of the vehicle, but pretty much every truck's going to have this. Some SUVs will, so it just depends on where you're running it, but a lot of times they do have these plugs throughout the floors, and it's not just up front. Like I said, it can be in the back, it can be in the middle, but you want to get as close to the outside edge. And where we're going up this pillar, we want to get it as close to this front seat as possible too. So we're not running wires and having to take more panels inside the car apart than we need to. As you can see, we've got this panel off. We'll probably pull this panel off to access the wire harness that runs up, so we can zip tie those wires to that as well. And other than that, the only other panel we'll need is the A-pillar panel. So on your A-pillar, which is the first pillar that's right attached to your windshield, you're going to have multiple ways that these panels come off. This one in particular, you've got this grab handle that has hidden bolts behind the handle that also help hold this cover on to the frame of the body. So you can take these off and run your wires. You will have, as you can see up here, there's going to be your front tweeter that you might want to disconnect depending on the vehicle. Sometimes they're not actually attached to this, sometimes they are. You don't have to disconnect it if you're just doing this camera install. You can just lower it down your dash and make sure it doesn't slide around, and it should be fine. Another way people will do is they'll take these door seals off and try and tuck the wires in there. The only downside to that is a lot of new vehicles have airbags in your pillars and your headliners and everything for the impact of side collision impact. So you don't really want those wires just floating in there. You want to get that secured into a good location behind the bag, closer to the frame of the body. So that way, in the rare case that you do get in an accident, that airbag isn't strapped down and keeps it from protecting you. So we'll take this off. I'll show you how these come off, and we'll gain access to that area right there next. These are a 10mm on this truck, but they range from 7mm on up. So, and sometimes they're even a Torx head screw, so you'll just want to see what you're working with and be prepared to have the tools to unbolt that as well. A lot of times it is a socket though. So I'll just take my 1/4" drive with the 10mm, loosen it up. Now these bolts are snug, they're not over tightened. They don't need to be, because they are holding on to a piece of plastic trim. So if they were over tightened, they would start to crush the plastic and become useless for the purpose of what they're there for, which would be helping hold you up. But in this case, just a nice snug fit there. We'll pop open the other one and take the next one out. Now with this camera kit, they do supply a panel popper tool that is a nylon material, so it won't mar up any of your plastic, or if it's a material like a suede or leather, it won't damage that. I have such a thin flathead that we tend to use that we also are very careful, but you could damage it if we use that aggressively. So if you're worried about that, definitely use the nylon tool that they give you. So we'll pull this one out and remove this. Now be careful you don't smack the glass if the ratchet is too long, because I've seen that happen, and you don't want to break a windshield over.
Right.
All right, now from here, you're basically going to have some clips that hold this on the rest of the way, and they really aren't hard to pull out, but you don't want to just yank and go completely this way, because there's also a pocket groove into the dash that holds this lower section of the A-pillar in. So you'll want to pop it loose, but this whole thing will slide out a little bit. And you'll see that once we get that, there's little grooves in a pocket down there. So we'll just come down like so, and then wiggle it up. And you see these little tabs and this little sleeve here. That's what that does. And then of course, there's that tweeter wire. So you don't want to yank on this. Like I said, you can lay this over and across on your dash. A lot of times they are a quick disconnect. So this one has a little tab. You can just push down and pull away, and this whole unit's disconnected. Now here's the airbag that I was talking about. This is something you definitely don't want to get in interfering with your cabling. So that's why I love to pull these off, because it's very quick. It's not that challenging, and even reinstalling it, it's just a matter of getting it back in the way you pulled it out in reverse. So you get it down there first, and then you find these little hole alignment tabs on the back side of your pillar trim. You'll have an alignment hole and then your clip hole. So once it finds that, you just get it in there and clip it. It's pretty simple. But don't forget, you got to make sure you reconnect your speaker there. Now looking down here, you're going to have access to pretty much going all the way down into the bottom of the floorboard, and it might not be that easy to see. You could probably look from the windshield down, but what we're going to be doing is going off of this harness right here, which you can see is on this whole outside of the pillar to stay clear of this airbag from the factory. So we need to stay with that as well. Again, you can zip tie right to this, and then we're going to be at this point having all the access to go right up here across the headliner to your mirror. Once you see it taken apart live like this, it kind of makes that scare mode kind of relax a little bit from, I think I might be able to do this myself. It didn't seem like that was hard. Now some of them don't have the handles, so they don't have the bolts. Some of them have a little, let's say this guy right here, but it's up here and it just says maybe the word airbag. That might be a little cover that you pop off that has a screw behind it. So if it doesn't just pop off easily, then there's something usually that's a mechanical, like a screw or a bolt holding it. So you don't want to damage whatever that is. If you do, you're actually damaging the part that you need to keep that thing tight. Nobody wants a loose A-pillar after they've done an install for themselves. So keep it, take your time, look for anything that might be caught up, and yeah, just it'll show itself where the hardware's at. Now from here, we can, just as I was saying, a lot of times people will pull these seals off to get your wires tucked behind here. You can imagine if I were to just tuck a wire with that pillar still there, you won't realize you're tucking it into the face of this airbag, which actually this curtain airbag goes all the way back, and it's designed to create a full curtain for side impact. You create that wire lock and now it's not going to do its job. It could definitely hurt you, so we don't want that. We can at least come up here, tie onto this harness and go forward, but that would just be about the only shortcut you could take on this part. The other damage thing that happens is you risk pinching the wire in here when you push this seal back into place, so you want to be careful with that.
I also want to make sure you're up in these tight places cutting, that you follow and feel the zip tie and make sure you're at the bottom of that and not cutting some other wire or something.
Oh,
don't
right.
pull the trigger until you know what you're aiming at. Oh, I see you. Okay, almost there. Okay, we're there.
We're there. So from here, we'll just pull the wire through. You can see that right there.
All right.
Get all the slack pulled out of it. Look at that. That should be just enough for what we're looking for.
Good deal.
Now you do want to make sure as you're pulling, like we've got Stan down there helping us, but you want to make sure you're not looping around something while you're pulling up, because sometimes they will catch a loop and grab something, and you think you got it all, but you don't always have it all. So
then you got a loose piece hanging down there.
Always double check before you call it done on that. And then this is the only thing we need to put through in the middle here. So I'm going to go ahead and take my knife, and I'll cut a hole in that little slot right there, so we can push this through the grommet, and we'll push that all the way back and cap it from there, and then we can tie it in with the rest of the harness up. All right, so this is a cool little trick we're going to try. Being that this head is kind of big, I'm not sure if it'll work on this hole punch here, but if we had a little bit bigger, it make it a little bit easier. But what we're going to do is try to use this hole punch and see if we can get the rubber to allow this through, and if it will, that'll be a really good seal for this wire itself. If not, we've got the old trusty Wolfbox blade to just create a nice little slice in there and get that wire through either way. So I'm going to go ahead and just try to center it as best as I can, and I'll clamp on it, and I like to spin these to help cut all the way through. I'll go ahead and pull it out and see. It's a small hole, but it is a rubber piece. So this is the bottom side and this is the top side, so let's see if we can't get this to push through here. I think we might be able to.
And by making it smaller, it leaves more of a seal when you push that through then, right?
Yeah. You know, all those off-road adventures you got going on, you want to minimize the water coming through here. So you also don't want it to damage that head of that. So try not to push on that. Just push on the main body of this. And look at that.
Oh, nice.
It's actually a really good seal right there. So
good deal.
I'll pull this all the way through. We'll be able to
thread the needle
and reset this grommet in its hole. This worked out really good. Like I said, keeping it tight but not overly tight, and then we'll just push that until it clicks right there. All right, and that's all that we need for that. And then we can run this wire. There's even a nice little channel right here. Wire right here, and we'll zip tie here. Now I am going to pull this off just to give you access to see what we're working with here, but you can tuck underneath here. This will lift and run it through the front side here. But I'm going to pull it just to give you guys a demonstration of what it looks like underneath. So you'll have panels clipping in here and one here for this guy. So we'll pull that forward, and then you'll be able to pull it down like so. And now you can see what we're working with. So we can even tuck underneath this zip tie from the factory. We'll try to keep all these wires right here and go up this guy right here. Now that's a nice little feature right here. If you notice, this is a factory ground connection. So in that hardwired option, you'll need a good ground. You could use a plate like this as well, but this is so close and easy to access. We'll just go ahead and loosen this up, put the ground wire on there, tighten it back up, and that's going to be perfect for what we're doing. Running wires is probably the longest part of the install with this. And as you can tell, there's so many things that you can run into that you want to avoid. So that's why it takes so long. You will, as you'll see soon, have to find your power and your accessory wire, because now we have our ground. But aside from that, the test light or meter will do all that for you. So.
Kind of a nice weekend project, or maybe, you know, one-day project.
Definitely, yeah. Something you could knock out on a Saturday. If you start early enough, you might even still have lunch, or if you're taking extra time in between, then maybe just after dinner. But yeah, it's not too hard of a project, especially for a first timer. The other thing is you can kind of loop around some of the wires instead of having to use a ton of zip ties if you're not, you know, wanting to. But I do recommend trying to keep them tight when it comes to these areas, because you have these clip holes that the kick panels need to clip into. And if that wire moves and gets in that way, you can cut or damage that wire when you're reinstalling these pieces. Try to avoid cutting any wires surrounding your zip ties, just because you never know what you're cutting. You don't want to cut any wire, but specifically you'll have airbag wires, you'll have main power supply wires like this, and so avoiding that as all as possible is the best thing that you can do. You just make sure, like Stan said, you get your tie tight, you make sure you got your cutters in a good area before you cut, and you're not going to hit something, and then you cut.
I'm just really happy that it's going to be so hidden away. I thought I might have some cords hanging somewhere, or, you know, but this is going to be virtually like it's not there.
Just like the factory wiring for the rest of the vehicle. Yeah, it'll be completely hidden. And if you were to use the cigarette lighter option, you know, like if you look at the dash right there, you've got one that you could use, and maybe just take it and come down with that wire and just tuck it underneath, maybe here, go all the way around and do the same process, and that'd be the only wire you see. But you can minimize almost all of the wires with the cigarette lighter option as well. So you have both choices with this. The hard wire option gives you that little extra cleanliness, so you don't have to lose the cigarette lighter. Go ahead. All right, shut it off. What we're doing here is we've got our fuse block, and being that the kit has the fuse inline adapters to give you an extra source of power, we need two. We need one that's a constant source, which basically is like connecting right to your battery. We need a ground, which we have right here. And then we need an accessory, which is when you turn your key into accessory or on mode, which basically tells the system to turn on. It's one way to keep it from draining your battery to have that feature. So it is nice to see that they have upgraded to having that kit instead of just the cigarette lighter option and a hard power and ground. What we have here is our multimeter, and all you need to do is set it to your voltage for DC, and when you're testing to see what you need for power, you're just looking for about 12 volts. So we just hook this lead to a ground right here, and then you want on the face of every fuse, you're going to have a hole, which I'll show you in a minute, that you can test either side of the fuse. If it's getting power constantly, that will actually give you a reading right here, and we're looking for, like I said, a reading of about 12 plus volts. If it's lower than that, maybe it's 8 or 6, that's not a constant source that we want to pull from, because we need enough to supply this system. And you could possibly be pulling from maybe an airbag or a low current system that's not going to be enough anyways to supply this. So testing it right on the fuse is already high enough current. So for the first few on the bottom, we've got nothing, as you can tell. This one, we've got nothing. But once we get to about here we go, we got 12.55 volts. So we can use this fuse location to add our constant fuse wire for that, which is in this case the yellow wire on that harness, and then the red wire is your accessory. So what you'll want to do is those wires that weren't active, or the fuses that weren't active while testing, you can do an ignition test. So you'll turn your ignition to on and test each one. If any of them show a 12 volt that were not showing it before, there's a good chance that's an accessory wire that you can use. Now sometimes you'll want to sit on that for a minute just to make sure it's not an activating switch that'll kick off at a short period of time, which sometimes does. So give it a minute. Like I said, patience. Just test it. If it's not staying consistent with the ignition, it's not a good ignition wire. And just move on up the fuse block until you find one. If you can't, then you can always pull from the ignition. Again, this is a hardwire option, so most people aren't going to want to do this if they're not comfortable messing with too much for wiring. But if you are, and you don't mind tackling that, that's going to be the easiest and best option for this situation. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see it from here, but over there you'll see this is a fuse panel, and so that's what we're testing, is the fuses themselves. Sometimes they're on the driver's side, sometimes they're up here. Just depends on which vehicle you're working with and where they've put it. But the easiest is on your fuse panel, and being that they gave you the inline fuse adapters, use them. That's the best option. You don't have to cut wires. They give you the crimped end caps to just plug it in. What you will do though, which is really neat, is you pull the fuse that you're using, and there's an extra slot, which I'll show you in a minute, that you put that fuse in, and then it's got the prongs on the other end that go in place of where that fuse was. So it's in a sense, it's pulling two lines of power, one to the original system and one out to this new fuse. That's what that extra wire comes out.
So you don't even need an open slot.
Nope. You can use an existing slot, which is awesome because there's enough current to supply with just about any, even a low amperaged fuse can handle this, because the circuit itself will handle more than what that main fuse is giving. That's just that dedicated line required fuse size. So we're going to test for our constant power, which I believe was this one. So that is our battery plus, which is the yellow wire on the harness. So we'll take and remove this 20 amp fuse, the yellow one. Just get some needle nose, get in there. And this is also going to tell you which style fuse you have. So as you can see, there are these close together prongs. So they're going to give you a bunch of different style adapters. This is obviously not the one we're going to need, so we don't want that one. But this looks like the ones we're going to use. So that's what we'll want. And I can put that right in here. Slides right down in there. And add a fuse. And then we'll just place this back into that circuit right there. So that's one of them. And ultimately you can have it either direction, but you want it to where it's fully set in there. So I'm going to go this way with it. If you need more room, because we're going to be pulling down here, we could go up a little higher as long as we've got a good source of constant. That's basically how it works. And now you've got your quick connect to go into your constant battery plus and your accessory red wire. So we'll get the other one that matches this one and pull the next fuse that has the accessory wire. We've got our accessory, our battery plus, and our ground location. We just need to basically run our wiring harness from the mirror location across the headliner down the pillar to here, so we can just make those three connections. And then we have the camera wire, which goes up to the same location, and the final wire is our GPS. So what I'll do is I will pull the camera wire up, which can be done multiple ways. You can feed it manually and feel around. You can put a fish line through there, or you can drop something from the top down, tape to your wire, and pull it up. The biggest thing is making sure you're not going to tie into anything that's going to yank wires or anything that could damage something behind there. There won't be airbags behind this section. You'll have your dash airbag, which is up here, so you won't have to worry about anything there. That's the next step from this point. There's multiple ways to pull the wire. What a lot of times we like to do is something like a metal wire, or you could use a clothes hanger. The challenge we're facing is the slant of the windshield and the angle that we need to go downward. We could almost just drop it straight down if we had something soft like a speaker wire, or in this case we've got a power wire that we can drop down. But all we really need to do is try to get it straight through, and then we can pull it straight up. Our cable that we normally would use is going to be a little too hard to get in and keep that angle without potentially scratching the glass or damaging anything. So we're going to try this first, drop it down, and if we can get it down our path, then we'll be in good shape, and we'll be able to tape our new wires to pull straight up. All right, so here we are.
Oh yeah.
See, we were able to pull it straight through. A lot of times it wants to go in this little area right here where this seal actually goes, and again, you don't want to really put anything there if you can avoid it, because in the end it could get pinched and damage those wires. So this method allowed us to go past that frame rail behind it and go straight down right to where we need to be. So we'll be able to pull this wire up. We should be able to fish it back in there and pull the other wire straight down. So we'll get this one taped onto it and go from there. Just any electrical tape, or you might even be able to use a masking tape, but you'll probably want something that won't rip that easy. So I suggest just a nice electrical wire tape. just enough to kind of get you started and help kind of guide it in as you go up. That way, if you feel it snag on something, you can stop and unsnag that area. But here we are. Now we've got that pulled through, and we just need the other two going down. So we'll get that going. Actually, just the other one, because the GPS antenna we're going to use this area for. So we'll get that prepped up here in a minute, and we'll stick it there, run the wires up there, and that one will be set too. Again, make sure you're clearing anything that could be tied up to that airbag strap wire or airbag itself. And then we'll let that sit like that, because we're going to put some zip ties after we get this bracket in there, and then we'll start with the camera spot and go this way, so we can keep all the wires tight and tucked evenly and cleanly. So at this point, what you're going to want to do now is, we've got most of it pretty well ran. We do have to run across the headliner, and to keep those tight, we want to basically set the camera on the mirror so we can have that position where all the wires need to go, and then they can tie together and go across and down. And if you need to, you can have any extra wire bundled up and maybe zip tied over here out of the way, so that way you keep it clean again and there's no extra loop wires that can kind of sag or anything on you. A lot of times people try to tuck them all the extra up top, and it really doesn't take much but a little bit of road vibrations to start shaking all that extra wire down, and next thing you know, you're driving, you got all these wires hanging. So let's try to avoid that by just keeping it clean, one simple run all the way across, and then it will eliminate any of that potential. So like we were saying earlier, there are the two different sizes. Each band has multiple different cross sections that you can use depending on how tight you need it to get. Just because this one's the shorter one doesn't mean it can get tighter or than the bigger one. It just depends on what tension you need depending on how many rows you're going to go over. This mirror is about the average size for the height, and maybe not as thick as some of them, but not as thin as others. So we're going to try this guy first, and if we need to, we can adjust from here down to this one, and if it's still not tight enough, we can go down to this one and see if that stretch keeps it nice and tight. You just don't want it to like slide around and vibrate on this mirror. On top of that, these do have these little grips on the back side that will help grab the frame of the actual mirror, so when it's being pressed against it, it will kind of get that added vibration protection. And then of course your monitor up front, or your camera on the front, it's on a swivel, so that's great for when you're actually adjusting the position of your mirror to your liking for your view of the front. You would adjust your camera to be straight out, looking directly in front of you, so okay, you get the best view for up, left, right, up and down, so you can capture pretty much everything. You want to make sure you do adjust that once you get the position of your mirror and the strapping done. We can leave the protective lens cover on until we're done, like we did with the back, just in case if we need to pull it off for any reason, to make some final adjustments. We'll stretch it and go to the closest one, and I like to pull it back to give it a nice tight grab, and that seems to be pretty tight right there. Now if you don't like seeing those, you could maybe cut that off right here.
Oh sure.
Or you could flip it to where the overhang's up top. Totally up to you. It's also nice to leave it in case if you were going to put it on a different vehicle, you have that to use for maybe a larger size mirror. But if this is where it's going to stay for the rest of its life, nothing wrong with trimming that little bit off and not having to see that. And again, once you get this position of how you like your mirror, then once everything's on, you'll want to adjust your camera's position up, down, left, and right to get that best view for your recording and whatnot. And then we will be putting the next step, which is our GPS antenna. And like I said, we're going to be putting it over here, but to keep the cabling managed over here, we need to kind of start basically on the mirror side and work our way this way. So we're going to route not only the GPS, but the power and the camera wires. So we'll get them basically plugged in, and you can tilt your mirror to see. You're going to have your USB-C, which is your power. You're going to have your audio video, and you're going to have your GPS. So this is our GPS cable. We'll get that in there. We have our camera cable, which is the audio video. We'll put that in there. Click it, just like so. And then the last one is our USB-C. Now, usually you'll have to go the opposite direction of that because it'll run into this wire. So we'll get that there. And then what we can do is either zip tie these together in a nice clean manageable spot, or if you wanted to use an electrical tape or even a Tessa tape or something to keep it clean and look almost like a factory wire, you could do that as well. In this application, we're actually going to do a Tessa tape to show you what it could look like when you have it loomed with that. So I'm going to start by actually taping these together. And this is a soft felted tape called Tessa tape. You can get this on Amazon or all sorts of electronic stores. We'll just get a few runs going, and then we'll have enough room to loom it down so we keep these cables managed nice and cleanly. Now, doing this also is going to allow us to keep it one big run to make it a little harder for that wire to come through that area of the lip of the headliner and down your windshield. So, and on top of that, having Tessa wrapped, that soft tape, if anything were to be hitting up against a piece of metal or something that's not tight, it won't have a rattling noise. So a good vibration security right there. Now again, this is an optional thing. We like to do that here at our shop to make sure we guarantee the cleanliness and that professional look that we go for. But you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can do just the front area where you see, or zip ties, whichever's comfortable for you. I won't go all the way down because, like I said, once we get to a certain point down here, we do want to actually keep all the extra wire clean and out of the way. So we will zip tie those together in a bundle. If this doesn't have enough room up here, you can pull it all the way down there and do that bundle down below if needed. I think we have a decent amount, but not too much wire on this job, that we can actually keep most of it right here nice and contained. So now we'll just pull this headliner back a little bit and kind of get that wire tucked in. You don't want to try to tuck it against the glass and the pinch weld right here. You want to get it on just outside of the pinch weld, and we can readjust that to see how that could look before we make our final run.
Yeah, very clean.
Yeah, don't pull too hard on your headliners either. Let the wire kind of just make its way in there, and you can just feed it with the tension of the wire. So we're right to here. I'm going to put a zip tie right here so nothing will fall down right here. It's got that nice tension.
And being it's thicker like that, has less of a chance of falling out of there too, right?
Definitely, yeah. It's got a big lip right here that it's catching on. So if it wants to try to make its way up there, it's going to really have a hard time. Chances are it'll never come out. But if it does, it's a lot easier to push in 3 wires that are taped together than 1 wire that's not. So it's a lot fatter and easier to manage that way. I'll go a little bit more on the Tessa tape to about here, and then I'm ready to clean the rest of that up and finish our wiring. Get one more zip tie. Now you can kind of see right here, the factory wiring has this same style tape. So it's a common use tape for a lot of new vehicles. So it's just going to blend in as if it was never even there. The next step is the GPS antenna. Since we're right in this area, we will get that. You can see how much extra wire. Now, if you wanted to, you could put it all the way over here, but they don't require you to go all the way to the middle of the car. They just require that the GPS antenna is facing up, opposite of the flat self-adhesive bottom. It even has the word up on it so that it helps to kind of make sure you know which way they're wanting it to face. It doesn't have to face any certain direction, just as long as it's up on the top. We also want to make sure on the side here, those arms that are on the A-pillar panel don't interfere with this wire, so you want to get it far enough out of that area so it doesn't capture that, but not so much that you're also looking at this big ugly wire. So we're going to go about here. I'm going to clean this area off with the isopropyl alcohol, and it'll help with the adhesion promotion, and we'll stick that next. Sometimes you'll have a lot of Armor All or some sort of, you know, cleaner or oil protectant on your dash, and if it starts to look chalky, just go ahead and once you're done sticking your double-sided tape on, then go ahead and reapply some conditioner so it hydrates the plastics again. You're just trying to get all the oils off of it right now. So now this wire, we can basically get all these together. We do want to have some slack to go down, but we can tie this one off. And then we'll do the next one, which is the camera wire, and we'll leave the power supply wire for the last because we need to pull that back through to hook up these three.
Okay.
I'll get that one out of the way. We'll get this one lubed in. Now make sure you don't zip tie too much to your speaker wire because you still need that freely moving for when you're actually hooking this all back up. You don't get it caught and make it too tight for the actual reconnection of that.
Yeah, don't forget to reconnect it, right?
And don't forget to reconnect it, yeah.
Your audio will not sound like you want it to.
You'll be missing something on this side, that's for sure. Zip ties are cheap, so don't be afraid to use them. So now with that, we'll have that ready to go down in that position. And then this wire is ready to go down for its final destination. Get that in that area, and yeah, we're ready to move on back down here. Now also, just like we pulled the wire up from down below, we can actually do the same thing by pulling a wire down to keep that same path. So we're going to do that with this wire, which is our main power supply. Go slow, steady, make sure you help guide the wire into position. If it snags, just kind of pull back and forth a little bit, get you a good clean pull. And just like that, we're all the way down here. Now, being that this is a plastic inverter box, I don't want to basically have it just floating in that area where it can rattle and make pretty obnoxious noises. So we're going to zip tie that with this harness as well up here. And we have plenty of wire down here to use to connect in the bottom. So now we're just down here, so what we'll do is pull this off of here and we'll get the ground hooked up and then the two power and accessory wires. You've got these wires that are pretty much tied together. If you need more room for your wire, you can pull a little bit to give yourself a little extra wire, but they're all right in this area, so we shouldn't need to pull too much. Now we do need to pull this ground wire loose. We don't need to take it all the way off because it isn't a closed end eyelet, it's an open end, so we should be able to get it in there once we loosen it enough. Slide that in there and then we'll retighten it. Just like so. And then we'll snug it back up. And now we have our ground wire. We'll just need our last two, which is a power and an accessory. So our power constant was this top one here. So we'll follow this over, hook that up, and this lower one is ignition. Just like that. We're live.
Yeah, how about that?
So now we can zip tie these together, get them all cleaned up and out of the way. And this part is done. We just have one more wire in the back and we're ready to put all this back together.
Good deal.
Yeah. At this point, now we can basically put the pillar back in, make sure we get our speaker connected and our GPS antenna in a proper location so it tucks around here and not in this place right there. And then after that, we'll set our two bolts and put our covers on and retuck our seal. So we'll get this guy in first. And these are one direction, they won't go the wrong way, they only go one way, so that's good. And then we'll keep our wire where I like it as we go forward. See how it gives us enough room there to get some play. And then of course you'll align your tab and your little clip there. Clip it. And now we're ready to just put the 2 bolts in, and all this is all done. I'll get this down a little ways. We do need to put the kick plate on, and then we can finish that the rest of the way. But as you can see how clean that looks, like it never happened.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like it came factory installed.
Yes. Get that back into position. You'll feel it click. Again, if you can finger tighten these first, that's going to save you from potentially whacking the windshield or anything. So, but it's also good to just try to ratchet on this side if you can. Down here it's a little harder because you have your dash, so you might ratchet this way. And just a nice little snug, nothing crazy. And we'll just put these back into place. There it is. Do the same down here with the reverse from how we pulled it, and
okay.
Yeah, the inside will be completed. With all our wires tucked, we'll go ahead and make sure we're not going to interfere with our clips here, and everything is in position still to go ahead and lock that down. There is one right here, so if we need to, we can reposition these guys so they're out of the way. But again, that's the reason why zip ties are very important. So I'll zip tie this real quick so that we clear this clip so we're not pinching it. And being that those are the main power wires, you definitely don't want to pinch those. Keep that clean. Now we can position this in here. Again, there's setting tab holes and everything, so you want to get those aligned. Get everything else in position. We'll click that in there. And then this bottom one down here. Then we can reset this guy. And the floor one. Let's go. There is a direction. You'll have these clips that need to follow there.
Okay.
And then these slide into here. So try to position everything just like you do the other ones. Just like so. Get fuse cover panel back in. And floor pin. And we're done on the inside.
Oh, nice.
Doing it this way eliminates that aftermarket, I did it myself look. It really just shows off that you can do it this way and make it look like it came that way from the factory. So it's definitely doable. So the last part on this project is we need to take the rear either side taillight. We're going to do the passenger side, and we're going to need our multimeter or test light to basically find the power side of the reverse taillight backup bulb. So you will want your electrical tape. You could use a tested tape to clean it up. We like to use wire strippers that help pull apart the loom so we can just access it without cutting the wire. If you don't have this and you have just a standard stripper, you can cut the wire once you figure out which one is the wire you need to tie into and just use an inline butt connector. But if you don't have to and you've got some of these or you plan on buying some, that's a great option. I'll show you how that works. It's a wire technique called midline tapping. Other than that, we'll have zip ties, the cutters, and then of course with this we need to pull the bolts that hold the lens on, which is an 8mm, so we'll remove that, pop the light out, and then we'll take the reverse light bulb out, which is usually going to be a clear lens section. There'll be like a bulb that's in the red section, maybe up and down. There's going to be like a blinker and a brake light, and then you'll have the clear one, which is always your reverse light. So you can kind of eliminate the guesswork on that just by going right to that bulb.
And then it's going to go up into the taillight housing through there.
So there's, on these trucks, there's usually just two. There's an upper and a lower. We'll just take those both completely out. Now the lens isn't just going to fall out just because you did that. There's still some clips that hold that in. So what you want to do is kind of pull away and get yourself they'll be snug, so be ready to pull towards you until the little lens clips pop out. And this is good to know for when you dirt there for when you have to change your bulbs out on your taillight.
Right.
So this one actually pops this way. There it goes. And that's these guys. They do seem aggressive, but they're actually just because they're super tight. Here we are. We've got your reverse, your 3 different plugs. So one of these is going to be your reverse light. The other 2 are going to be brake and turn signal. And then on this truck, we do have the radar sensor on the side. So you definitely don't want to be tying into that. You just want to make sure you get the right connection. We'll use an assistant to help actually put the vehicle in reverse with the brake light on, or brake on as well. That way it doesn't run you over, but that way you can see which one is active when you're checking to see which light is your reverse light. So I'll have Stan go ahead and do that for me. Yeah. All right, so once you hit reverse, this one lit up on both sides. Go ahead and put it in park again. That one goes off. So now what we're going to do is we need to basically eliminate this light and we're going to be into this harness. So simple enough, but yet of course this one has multiple wires because we have that sensor on the side. We can test it by unplugging it and seeing if there's a separate loom that goes right to it, or we can meter each wire. I'm going to take this off and see what we can find.
Got it pulled through. Okay.
So what we're going to do, we've unbolted the 4 bolts for this sensor bracket, which has the plug for not only the sensor but the reverse light. And once you pull it back, you just want to be careful because you don't want to damage anything, but you're going to have a separate lens for your bulb for your reverse light. Now normally you'd think, okay, black is ground and yellow is positive, but you don't ever want to assume. You just want to test. It's just easier to know than to guess. So we'll follow these wires up to this other side of this plug here, and we've got our yellow and our black, which are these outer prongs here, and then we're gonna take that and follow the opposing side to the actual connector on the truck, and those are the wires we're going to test. So what we can do from there is determine which one on a multimeter will be a positive polarity and a negative polarity, meaning if it's negative 12 volts, we've got the positive on the ground side and the ground on the positive side. If it's regular 12 volts, we've got it right the first time, and now whichever is your positive probe is the one that you're going to tap that red wire into for your power turn on wire for your camera. Then we can put all this back together and go ahead and basically test the system out and see where we're at. To basically use the good old method of testing the wires with the meter, and even a light wire tester will actually not glow on one and glow on the other. So the meter is just nicer because you get an instant number to go off of. You can also ground test your wires for polarity and all that. So this just makes it to where we can now take our feed wire, pull it into whichever one it needs, and then we will put it in line. And like I said, depending on which one it is, if we didn't have the wire splice tool, we can just cut the wire, separate a little bit of that loom, connect one end to a butt connector and the other end to the other end, and now it's a completed circuit again. I'll show you the midline tap option. That's pretty neat. You might like that. I'm going to get these 2 connectors out of the way because we're going to hook this back up, being that it does have the sensor for the side. We don't want to interfere with that, but we're going to basically separate the wiring loom off of these 2 wires. I always do it in a different location so they can't touch together, but then we can basically probe with our multimeter those 2 wires and see, once it's put into reverse, which direction we need to be pulling from, and then that'll tell us which wire we want to tap into. So you'll just basically get your wire separation tool and just do a little bit at a time you'll see it'll start to separate just like so. That's when we stop on that one, and then I'll come down and do this one a little bit lower. That one kicked a little bit faster. So now we have bare wire, but it's not cut. We just basically separated the protective layer off of that. And then we'll take our multimeter, we'll kick it into DC voltage, and then we're going to take these two probes, one on each. My guess, maybe green is the hot wire. So go ahead and let's put it in reverse. So we have a positive number there. And then it went away when he shut it off. So we were right. Now if we were to do this backwards, go ahead and try that again. It'll still say the same number.
The negative.
So that means my red positive lead is on the negative side. We need it to be on here.
Okay.
So this green wire is our positive wire that this red wire needs to connect to. And that's the hardest part about this. So we'll go ahead and we will use electrical tape to secure this wire closed. Sometimes you'll see these little things with tape like that and you wonder, why is there just a random piece of tape there? Well, that was at one point a shop must have tested that wire to see what it was for. And that's what that does. We're protected now, and we've got this this unshielded wire here, and I'm going to show you how to midline tap. So you'll take your wire, get a clean edge here. We'll separate, I like to do about 1 inch or more of separation. Okay, and then what you're doing, once you pull that off, you obviously want to keep it twisted so the strands don't go everywhere. You got a lot of wire there, right? And then if you take maybe the test probe or a small pick tool, try to get in the middle of your wires and just separate it. Go back and forth. If you can separate, that'll hold that open, just like so. Now, take your exposed wire, bend it over, stick it through there.
Through the hole,
and loop it around.
Wow.
Now that's going to keep that wire from being able to pull out, and it's got a complete and positive connection, so nothing ever got disturbed. Then we'll just take our tape again, wrap that, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap the whole thing so it looked like it never happened. And this electrical tape insulates that wire from anything corroding and arcing on any other surfaces like a raw edge or whatnot. So now we've got that. I'm going to use the Tessa tape. And now we can get our two connectors back. We'll plug everything back in. We'll push the light back in and put the two bolts. And let's test the system. All right. We'll go ahead and pull that protective lens off of there. And again, don't forget, we'll want to tighten those two set screws just if it's not tight enough as it is. If we need to make adjustments, we can do that now, but otherwise we're set.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Glad we could help.
And so you guys get an idea of, you know, if you're going to hire someone, what that might look like, or if you're going to do a DIY. Gosh, detailed explanation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You guys are the pros. What else do you do here in your shop?
So we do a lot of different accessories just like this, as well as audio video, a lot of auto glass, chip repairs, window tinting, and just anything automotive related, you know, toy related, whether it's side-by-sides or your dirt bikes or anything like that. We just want to make sure everybody has all those fun accessories, as well as the needs, like you got broken windshield, or you know, you're cooking in that sun from not having any tint. We want to take care of it for you.
And you're right here in Cottonwood, Arizona, and you guys are getting ready to move to a new shop.
We are. First of the year, we're going to be in a new, much larger facility. We're going to have a little bit more things that we're going to add to that too. So we're going to be over in 310 South 6th Street here in Cottonwood. And if you need to reach us, you can get a hold of us at 928-649-1111.
And what we'll do is we'll put your contact information email, phone number, website, all of that stuff down in the description as well. So if you're in the Arizona area, especially northern area, Arizona area, Sedona area, which is amazing, you should be here. There's so many RV parks here.
Yes.
Is it like you can find a site? Trust me, there's lots of sites
of RV locations. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much again, Matt. You made it look easy, and we appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys, and yeah, anything we can do to help, and especially with helping people that want to try this themselves. It's always awesome to see people do it themselves, as long as I know that I've helped get them in the right direction, help them however we can.
There you go. Now I get to go play with it.
Ooh, yeah.
That'll be fun. Thanks
Awesome.
again.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
You have a good one.
Again, this is a great gift for anybody with a vehicle. This is like my favorite upgrade this year, and you can always get the best price on the Wolfbox G900 Pro camera system by using our link in the pinned comment and the description, and that'll be inclusive of all discounts. Thank you so much for using our links, and you can see our next video right here.